wishes to present to the Senate some person yet to be laid from the office of President of the Senate. In order to officially place the person in the public domain through the floor of the Senate and for the votes and proceedings to capture the approval for referral. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, find below a summary of persons received from the office of the President of the Senate. 1. Robert Boloko, respondent, Head of Service of the Federation and the Director General of National Lottery Regulatory Commission. Subject matter, petition against my unlawful letter of dismissal. 2. Dr. Mba Olushi and 3 others on behalf of the General Medical Interns of the National Assembly Clinic. Responded, the Clerk of the National Assembly. Subject matter, I pay for our unpaid salaries. 3. Abetosola Jacob and 4 others on behalf of all guards of officers of Close Security Limited, Wesley Guides Hospital, Ilesha, Osun State. Responded, Close Watch Security Services Nigeria Limited. Complaints of unpaid wages by Close Watch Security Limited for Senate intervention. 4. Chief Johnson F. Ntegu and 2 others on behalf of Akwa Ibom Cooperative Fisheries Association. Responded, ExxonMobil, Nigerian Limited. Non-payment of compensation to Akwa Ibom Cooperative Fisheries Association Limited in respect of oil spillages occasioned by facilities of ExxonMobil from 1998 to 2012. And finally, Mr. President, Shidi W. Nwashuku on behalf of Bambo Consulting Engineers Limited, Bambo Nigeria Limited and Divenge Gateway Limited. Respondent, Federal Road Maintenance Agency. Petition for payment of debt owed, contracted in the sum of about 30 billion. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, to the best of my knowledge, none of the above petitions is seeking judicial remedy. I therefore move, Mr. President, to seek the knowledge of the Senate to lay the above petition before the Senate for official referral to the Committee for further legislative actions. I so move, Mr. President.
Is any of the petitioners seeking any judicial remedy? You may lay the petitions, please. The petitions are referred to the Committee on Ethics, Privileges and Public Petitions to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first business of the day is the presentation of a House bill standing in my name on the mandatory inclusion of agricultural sciences in secondary school curriculum in Nigeria, Bill 2022. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, mandatory inclusion of agricultural sciences in secondary school curriculum in Nigeria Bill 2022, HB 244, first reading.
Mandatory inclusion of agricultural science in secondary school curriculum in Nigeria Bill 2022, HB 244, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, The second business of the day is the presentation of our bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Biobara Kuma Deji Eremeyo on the National Agricultural Extension Services Center, Otugwe 1, Ogbia, Bayelsa State, Establishment Bill 2022. Mr. President, we will invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Agricultural Extension Services Center, Otuge 1, Ogbia, Bayelsa State Establishment Bill 2022, SB 895, first reading.
National Agricultural Extension Services Center, Otogwe 1, Ogbia, Bayelsa State Establishment Bill 2022, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Smart Ademi on the Federal University of Medicine and Medical Sciences Egbe Kogi State Establishment Bill 2022. Mr. President, we wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal University of Medicine and Medical Sciences Egbe, Kogi State Establishment Bill 2022, SB 896, first reading.
Federal University of Medicine and Medical Sciences Egbe, Kogi State Establishment Bill 2022, SB 896, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth business of the day is the presentation of our bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Oche Ekwinife on the National Innovation Agency Bill 2022. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Innovation Agency Bill 2022, SB 898, first reading.
National Innovation Agency Establishment Bill 2022, SB 898, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fifth business of the day is the presentation of a bill standing in the name of distinguished Senator Ovi Augustine Omo Agege, the Deputy President of the Senate, on the National Social Security Commission Establishment Bill 2022. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, National Social Security Commission Establishment Bill 2022, SB 899, first reading.
National Social Security Commission Establishment Bill 2022, SB 899, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is a motion standing in my name on the rescission clause 84 of the Electoral Act number 6, 2010, Amendment Bill 2022, and committal to the Committee of the Whole. Mr. President, with your permission, I wish to move the motion.
You may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate recalls that on Wednesday, 19th January 2022, Section 84 in the Electoral Act number 6, 2010 Amendment Bill was reconsidered in the Committee of the Whole following the withholding of assent by the President Commander-in-Chief with observations. Senate observes that some fundamental issues which require fresh legislative action by both chambers of the National Assembly emerged on the clause. These necessitated a joint leadership meeting in order to give Nigerians an enduring electoral act that can stand the test of time. And Senate, relying on Order 1B and Order 52.6 of Senate Standing Order 2022 as amended, accordingly resolved to rescind its decision on the affected clause of the bill as passed and recommit the same to the Committee of the Whole for reconsideration and passage. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion ably moved by the Senate leader. I so second.
Any comments? Leader of the Senate, Committee of the Whole.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move that this distinguished chamber resolve in the Committee of the Whole to reconsider this recommittal. I so move.
Leader of the Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that this Senate do now resolve into Committee of the Whole to consider this report and recommittal.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate resolves into Committee of the Whole to consider the report, say aye. Those against, any the ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, this amendment is for a single clause, clause 84, nomination of candidates by political parties. And this is a harmonized report. The House has the same report. So those in favor that clause 84 stands part of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I rise to move a motion that this distinguished chamber refers to plenary to enable the chair to report progress. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that this chamber now revert to plenary to report progress. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate reverts to plenary for the chair to report progress, say aye. Those against, any the ayes have it. The Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the Electoral Act number 6, 2010, Repeal and Reenactment Bill 2022, and approved as follows. Clause 84 as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I rise to move that this amendment be read the third time. I so move.
Clerk. Distinguished colleagues, by passing the amendment, we did amendment to clause 84, the mode of conducting primaries by parties to produce candidates we have concluded on our task on the amendment to the Electoral Act number 6, 2010 bill. You will recall that the Senate and the House passed the Electoral Act Amendment Bill with slight difference. While the House passed the mode of primaries to be direct and indirect only, the Senate passed the mode of primaries to be direct, indirect, and consensus. What we have done is to give very clear, sufficient, is to give very clear and sufficient definition to each mode of primaries. The direct primaries is well defined and how it will be conducted. Ditto the indirect primaries. And for the consensus, the two chambers have produced in this bill now very clear definition of how a consensus candidate would emerge. And therefore, we are very glad that we have been able to achieve this consensus between the two chambers to arrive at this harmonized version. And we are also very optimistic that Mr. President will sign the bill. Our desire is to ensure that we reform the electoral processes in Nigeria for better transparency, for better accountability, for better integrity, to the satisfaction of Nigerians and the international community. Political parties, when this is signed into law, would have the responsibility of ensuring that they follow the law. Otherwise, they will end up missing the opportunity to participate in elections. So let me thank all of us here for ensuring that we are able to work and pass the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. And this is very significant for us in the 9th Senate and indeed the 9th National Assembly, because this is a fundamental bill as important as the PIA now, as it gives Nigerians the opportunity to have everybody's vote count. Thank you very much. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day, the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee on Tertiary Education and Tech Fund on the Federal University of Wakari Establishment Bill 2022. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was referred to the committee on Tuesday, 26 November 2019. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Ahmed Babakaita, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report. In the absence of Ahmed Babakaita, the Deputy Chairman of this committee, Professor Sandy Ono, will move the motion for the presentation and consideration of the report. I so move.
Distinguished Senator Professor Sandy Ono.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am Senator Sandy Ono representing Cross River Central. I rise to move that the Senate do receive and consider the reports of the Senate Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund on two bills, namely, one, a bill for an act to establish the Federal University Wukari, Taraba State, and to make comprehensive provisions for its due management, administration, and other matters connected therewith, 2021 SB 24. And a bill for an act to repeal the Federal Colleges of Education Act, 1998, and to reenact Federal Colleges of Education Act, and for other matters connected therewith, Bill 2022 SB 531. I so move, Mr. President.
I think you moved the two.
Very well, Mr. President.
Sorry?
I have been so briefed, Mr. President, yes.
Leader, there are two reports there. So why are you saying they should step one down?
Mr. President, it's at the request of the committee. There are some mix-up in at the committee level. So the chairman of the committee came up to me today. He said, please, let's rescind that one so that they can put their house together.
So which one are we taking now? The first or the second?
Can I?
Okay, so the Distinguished Chairman, so we are receiving the report, the first report only.
Let me apologize to the leader, Mr. President. The clerk just came and said we are ready for both. Very well, leader.
Okay, so you are on course.
Thank you, Mr.
But I need
President.
somebody to second the motion.
Yes,
I need someone to second this motion, please.
please, fella, yes.
Senator Tolu Odebi.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I rise to second the motion ably moved by my good friend to present the report of the Tertiary Education Committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TED Fund on the Federal University Wukari Accession Bill, and also the Federal receive and consider the report of the Committee on the Federal College of Education Act 1998 repeal and enactment, say aye. Those against any that said. Chairman, you may lead reports, please. Chairman, you may present the report, the first one.
Thank you, Mr. President. Federal University, Wukari. From the views expressed by the stakeholders at the public hearing and subsequent analysis of both oral and written presentations of memoranda, the committee hereby makes the following observations and findings. One, The stakeholders who made both oral and written submissions at the public hearing unanimously subscribed to the content of the draft bill and rendered their overwhelming solidarity in support of the passage of the bill by the National Assembly. 2. The Federal University Wukari is one of the 6 universities approved and established across the 6 geopolitical zones and has since commenced academic activities. 3. Nevertheless, it has been observed that at the point of assent to the bill by the then President and CNC, an important observation was reached which borders on visitor in the interpretation clause, and that has also been changed to reflect the precedent. Furthermore, all that is required at the moment is the legal backing to aid the smooth running of the university, as all the operational structures are already in place and no financial implications whatsoever. 4, the bill further seeks to achieve the establishment of a world-class human resource center of excellence that can provide technical and managerial expertise to nurture unique innovations, entrepreneurship, and wealth management in its core areas of interest with credence as Federal University Wukari in Taraba State to meet the learning and research needs of prospective students of the host communities, in particular Nigeria and the world at large. The knowledge and skills that will be acquired by the graduates from the envisaged Act of the National Assembly would definitely go a long way in expanding and deepening the horizon of the students in all related fields, thereby contributing to the nation's GDP and increased revenue base of Nigeria, and consequently contributing to national integration and social progress of the multicultural young people of this country. Hence the need for the Senate to consider and approve this legislative proposal for the benefit of humanity in general and Nigeria as a nation state in particular. Recommendations. The Senate Committee on Tertiary Institutions and TETFON, to which this bill was referred, having carefully considered same, hereby recommends as follows: that the Senate do consider and pass the bill for the establishment of the Federal University Wukari, Taraba State, and to make comprehensive provisions for its due management, administration, and for other matters connected therewith, 2022 SB 24. I so move, Mr. President.
Any comments? Leader of the Senate Committee of the Vote.
Mr. President, I rise to a motion that the Senate resolve in the Committee of the Whole to consider this report.
Chairman, you can present the second one so that we take both at the same time.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
Repeal and reenactment of Federal Colleges of Education. Findings. From the views expressed by the stakeholders at the public hearing and subsequent analysis of both oral and written presentation of memoranda, the committee hereby makes the following findings. Number 1, the repeal of the Federal Colleges of Education Act 1998 and reenactment of the Federal Colleges of Education Bill 2022 will certainly go a long way in supporting teacher education, training and instructions in Nigeria, and would serve as an enabler for running higher academic programs such as first degree in education, making it affordable, accessible to the benefit of the Nigerian people, thereby increasing the educational opportunities amongst diverse demographics in the country while closing the gap in knowledge of teacher education in general. 2, the repeal of the Federal Colleges of Education Act 1998 and reenactment of same will no doubt provide the required manpower needs of Nigerians in the areas of specialized educational services, training of teachers, and teaching in every aspect of education and fields of applied learning relevant to the developmental needs of educational sector in Nigeria. 4, corollary to this proposition is the fact which propelled the support received from the 64 chapters of affiliated bodies and 65 colleges of education senior staff association. The stakeholders were of the belief that colleges of education in Nigeria offer degree programs in affiliation with numerous universities in Nigeria, while utilizing the same infrastructure and capacity of the colleges, and therefore urge the hallowed chambers for its magnanimity to offer special privileges to the colleges of education in Nigeria to handle degree programs to be supervised by the National Universities Commission. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the repeal of the Federal Colleges of Education Act 1998 and reenactment of same can be described as putting a round peg in a round hole. Recommendation. The Senate Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Tech Fund, having carefully considered the bill, hereby recommends as follows. That the Senate do consider and pass the bill for an act to repeal the Federal Colleges of Education Act 1998 and to reenact the Federal Colleges of Education and for other matters connected therewith, Bill 22 SB 531. Conclusion. In conclusion, I wish to use this opportunity to thank the President of the Senate and distinguished colleagues for the opportunity to serve in this capacity and to humbly request the Senate to pass these bills. I so move, Mr. President. Thank you.
Leader of the Senate, any contributions? Leader of the Senate Committee of the Whole.
Mr. President, I raise a motion that this Senate resolves in the Committee of the Whole to consider the two reports. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion that the Senate resolve into a Committee of Whole for a class-by-class consideration of the two bills. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate resolves into Committee of the Whole to consider the two reports clause by clause say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, we start with the report on the establishment of the Federal University Wukari, and this bill has 33 clauses. Those in favor that clause 1, clause 2, clause 3, clause 4, and clause 5, functions of the Chancellor and Pro-Chancellor stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 6. Clause 6 is on page 5. Composition, tenure, and powers of the Council of the University. Clause 7, Clause 8, Clause 9, and Clause 10. Those who are those clauses stand part of the bill say aye. Those against any the ayes have it. Clause 11 is on page 10. Functions of the Vice Chancellor. Clause 12, Clause 13, Clause 14, and Clause 15. Those who feel that Clause 11 to 15 stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 16 is on page 12. Power to decide the meaning of statute. Clause 17, Clause 18, Clause 19, Clause 20. Those who vote that those clauses stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 21 is on page 17. Clause 22, Clause 23, Clause 24, and Clause 25. Those who vote that those clauses stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 26 is on page 19, quorum. Clause 27, appointment of committees. Clause 28, Clause 29, and Clause 30. Those who vote that those clauses stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Clause 31. Those who vote that Clause 31 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who vote that the interpretation stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who vote that the short title stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who vote that the explanatory, the schedules 1, 2, and 3 stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who vote that the explanatory memorandum stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who vote that the long title on page 1 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. The second report. The second report is on Federal Colleges of Education Act 1998 Repeal and Reenactment Bill. Those who vote at Clause 1, Clause 2, Clause 3 or retain, Clause 4, and Clause 5, membership of Governing Council. Those who vote at these clauses stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Clause 6, on page 6, tenure of office of council member. Clause 7, Clause 8, Clause 9, and Clause 10. Those who feel that those clauses stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Clause 11, power of the minister over councils. Clause 12, Clause 13, Clause 14, Clause 15. Those who vote that those clauses stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Clause 16 is functions of registrar and tenure on page 19. Clause 17, Clause 18, Clause 19, and Clause 20. Those who vote that those clauses stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Clause 21 on page 23, tenure of service of other principal officers. Clause 22, Clause 23, Clause 24, and Clause 25. Those who vote that those clauses stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Clause 26 on page 25, gifts and donations. Clause 27, Clause 28, Clause 29, Clause 30. Those who vote that those clauses stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who vote that Clause 31 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who vote that the interpretation on page 30 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who vote that repeal Clause 32 on page 31 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who vote that the short title stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who vote that the schedules stand part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who vote that the explanatory memorandum stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Those who vote that the long title on page 1 stands part of the bill say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I rise to move that the chair reports progress. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. Chairman, I rise to second the motion that the chair report progress on plenary.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate reverse the plenary for the chair to report progress say aye. Those against say nay, the ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, the Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Third Fund and the Federal University Wukari Establishment Bill 2022 and approved as follows. Long title as recommended, clause 1 to 31 as recommended, interpretation as recommended, short title as recommended, schedules 1, 2, and 3 as recommended, explanatory memorandum as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Distinguished colleagues, the Senate in the Committee of the Whole also considered the report of the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Third Fund on the Federal Colleges of Education Act 1998, Repeal and Enactment Bill 2022, and approved as follows. Long title as recommended, clause 1 to 30 as recommended, interpretation as recommended, repeal as recommended, short title as recommended, schedules 1 and 2 as recommended, explanatory memorandum as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move that the Federal University of Wukari Establishment Bill 2022 be read the third time. Also be read the third time.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion that the two bills be read a third time. I shall second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that this bill be now the third time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act established the Federal University Wukari to make comprehensive provision for due management and administration and for other related matters 2022 SB 24, third reading. Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to repeal the Federal Colleges of Education Act.
Clerk, I didn't put that question on the second one. I only put the question on Federal University of Wukari. So I will do it before I put the question for the second one again. Distinguished colleagues, a bill for an act to establish the Federal University Wukari to make comprehensive provisions for due management and administration and for other related matters 2022 third reading taken and the bill is passed. Leader, I put the question on the first one. So can you read the second one, please?
Mr. President, I rise to move that this distinguished Senate read the Federal College of Education Act 1998, Repeal and Re-enactment Bill 2022 be now read the third time. I so
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, I rise to second the motion that's moved.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that this will be now read the third time, say aye. Those against, say nay. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to repeal the Federal Colleges of Education Act 1986 and to reenact the Federal Colleges of Education and for other matters connected there with 2022 SB 531, first, third reading.
A bill for an act to repeal the Federal Colleges of Education Act 1986 and to enact the Federal Colleges of Education and for other matters connected there with 2022 third reading taken, and the bill is also passed. Congratulations, Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is the consideration of the report of the Committee on Aviation on the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria Act Cap F5 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004 Repeal and Re-enactment Bill 2022. Mr. President, distinguished senators will recall that the report of the committee was laid on in this chamber on Wednesday, 8th December 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Smart Adeyemi, Chairman of the committee, to move the motion for the consideration of the report.
Distinguished Senator Smart Adeyemi for US.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise, Mr. President, to move the motion that the Senate do consider the bill for an act to repeal the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria Fund Act Cap 15, F5, Law of the Federation of Nigeria 2004. Mr. President, to reenact the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria to provide for effective management of airports and other matters related. This bill, Mr. President, is a bill that is seeking to empower the aviation industry, particularly Federal Airport Authority, to meet the challenges of management of airports in Nigeria. This bill, Mr. President, is seeking more powers to be able to monitor the establishment of airdromes and airstrips in this country. There is a trend now, Mr. President, where people are setting up airstrip without approval or fund, and there are loopholes in the process of prosecuting such people. So this bill is seeking the powers to make sure that whoever, either individual or corporate organization that intend to set up airstrip or airdrome, seek the approval of the Federal Airport Authority on one hand, and equally, Mr. President, this will seek to ensure there is cordial relationship between the various agencies that constitute the industry of aviation. Talking about the functions of related agencies like Nigeria Meteorological Agency, Nigeria Civil Aviation, their functions are interwoven and interlocking with each other, that there is a need to have a coordination between the Federal Airport Authority and these sisters agencies whose functions are very required for the safety of the industry, talking about the safety of passengers and the aircraft. So this bill, Mr. President, is all encompassing to ensure the smooth operations of the airport. Equally in this bill, Mr. President, there is a provision to ensure that the security agencies of the aviation industry, that is both the fund, the airport, and related agencies, to be able to get people to comply with regulations as the way and manner passengers and non-passengers conduct themselves within the Nigeria airport. There are cases of people who come into the airport without recourse to the guidelines of modes of operations of the airport. So there are positive measures already in this bill, and to make sure that people comply, and to make our industry, the aviation industry, one of the best. Of course, so far the Nigeria aviation industry has been rated as one of the best in Africa. For this to continue, we need to ensure that we update all the rules and regulations governing the running of the airport and related matters therein. Mr. President, I so submit.
Any comments? Leader of the Senate Committee of the Whole.
Mr. President, I rise to move that this Senate resolves in the Committee of the Whole to consider this report. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that this Senate resolve into Committee of the Whole to consider this report.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do resolve into Committee of the Whole to consider the report, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, this bill has 44 clauses, and most of the clauses retain not controversial. Those in favor of clauses 1, 2, 3, 4, all retained, and 5 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clause 6 is on page 10 Functions of the authority. Those were at clause 6, clause 7, powers of the authority, clause 8, clause 9, delegation of functions, and clause 10, managing director of the authority. That these clauses stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 11, clause 12, clause 13, clause 14, and clause 15 on page 24, establishment of directorates. Those who were at clauses 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 16, fund of the authority on page 25. Clause 17, clause 18, clause 19, and clause 20. Those in favor of those clauses stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 21 on page 35, power to accept gifts. Clause 22, clause 23, clause 24, clause 25. Those in favor of those clauses stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 26 on page 42, power to discontinue use of airports. Clause 27, clause 28, clause 29, and clause 30. Those in favor of those clauses stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 31 is on page 49, establishment of staff housing scheme. Clause 32, clause 33, clause 34, clause 35, restrictions on execution of judgment against the authority. Those in favor of those clauses stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 36, clause 37, clause 38, clause 39, and clause 40. Those who were at clauses 36, 37, 38, 39, and 40 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Clause 41 and clause 42, repeal and savings. Those who were at those two clauses stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Those who were at interpretation stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Those who were at the short title on page 63 stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Those who were at the schedules 1 and 2 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Those who were at the explanatory memorandum on page 77 stand part of the bill, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Those who were at the long title on page 1 stands part of the bill, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
My highly respected and distinguished colleagues, I rise to move that the chair reports progress. I so move.
Minority Leader.
Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that the Senate do revert to plenary to report progress as also.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate reverts to plenary for the chair to report progress, say aye. Those against any, the ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, the Senate in the Committee of the Whole considered the report of the Committee on Aviation on the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria Fund Act Cap F5 Elephant 2004 Repeal and Enactment Bill 2022 and approved as follows. Long title as recommended. Clauses as recommended. Interpretation as recommended. Short title as recommended. Schedules as recommended. Explanatory memorandum as recommended. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Thank you. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, I rise to move that this bill be read a third time.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that this bill be now read the third time. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that this bill be now read the third time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to repeal the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria FAN Act CAF F5, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to reenact the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria to provide for effective management of airports in Nigeria and for related matters 2022 SB 196, third reading.
A bill for an act to repeal the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria FAN Act CAF F5, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to reenact the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria to provide for the effective management of airports in Nigeria and for related matters 2022, third reading taken, and the bill is passed. Congratulations, Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, my highly respected and distinguished colleagues, the fifth order of the day is the second reading of the Witness Protection and Management Establishment Bill 2022. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this distinguished chamber on Tuesday, 23rd February 2021. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Suleiman Abdukari to move the motion for the bill to be read the second time.
Distinguished Senator Suleiman Abdukari, Kaduna North.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Suleiman Abdukari. I represent Kaduna North. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I thank you for the opportunity to lead the debate on the need for a bill to make comprehensive provisions for the establishment of a witness protection and management framework and related matters, which can and will be implemented by all public institutions having responsibility under the law to investigate and or prosecute offenders. This bill was read first on 23rd February 2021. It was also listed among the bills of interest.
Excuse me, please. Where are the copies of the lead debate?
I think so. May I continue, Mr. President?
I think a good number is. Clerk, next time, please, because this is delaying us. It's wasting our time. They should be sharing this as soon as the item is to be taken. You may continue, please, distinguished.
Thank you, Mr. President. this bill was listed among the bills of interest and international significance contained in the recent executive communication from the President, Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, which was read on the floor of this hallowed chamber on the 19th January 2022. Empirical evidence showed that one of the major causes of the inability of successfully prosecute successfully criminal cases in our courts is the lack of witnesses. Many of them face intimidation and threats, just as prosecutors most times do not have the funds and management framework to safely bring witnesses to testify in court. The passage of this bill into law will fill this gap, as well as fulfill some of the country's international commitments to various conventions and protocols, like the United Nations Convention Against Corruption, UNCAC, amongst others. A witness protection and management bill and whistleblower bill were initially considered as co-joined in a single bill by the 8th National Assembly and passed in 2017. But following a technical stakeholders roundtable comprising of representatives of relevant criminal justice system operators, it was resolved that both bills be unbundled in order to allow law enforcers or law enforcement agencies currently running witness protection programs continue in that wise. This necessitates the separation of the two bills and accordingly paves the way for witness protection programs across the broad spectrum of law enforcement agencies, thereby discouraging duplicity and multiplicity of agencies. Section 1 of this bill, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, establishes a legal and institutional framework to protect witnesses and related persons with responsibilities for carrying out all administrative duties relating to witnesses and related persons, ensuring that the relevant agency takes responsibility for entering into a witness protection agreement, regulates the procedure while harmonizing existing laws and policies on the witness protection and management. The bill in Section 2 also specifies offenses, laws in which the bill can apply, and they comprise terrorism, money laundering, prevention and prohibition, economic and financial crimes, corrupt practices and other related offenses, drugs, narcotics, and their trafficking, trafficking in persons, criminal and penal code offenses, customs and excise management, any legislation dealing with process of crime, confiscation and forfeiture of assets, and to all justice sector institutions and authorities, including the courts, law enforcement, as well as security agencies and other relevant regulatory institutions towards the protection of witnesses in the course of the investigation, detection, and prosecution of offenses. Part 2 sets standards for establishing and managing the witness protection program, which all relevant agencies comply with, especially with respect to the above-mentioned offenses. Section 3 mandates all public institutions having responsibility under their laws of investigating and prosecuting offenses under any law to establish a witness protection and management program. This part further provides for rights, duties, privileges, and obligations of other bodies such as courts, lawyers, parent, guardian in relation to witness protection and management. Part 3 provides for protection such as allowing a witness to establish a new identity or restore a former witness's original identity by an application from a relevant agency made to the court. For a new entry in the birth, marriage, or death registry, and issuance of a certificate as the case may be. This is critical to the protection of witnesses' identity. Part 4 mandates relevant agencies to designate a witness protection office at each of their branch offices to enable the adoption and management of witness protection program, as practicable as possible. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, Part 5 establishes a witness protection fund which is to be managed and controlled by the relevant agencies, and such fund includes monies appropriated by the National Assembly for payment into the protection fund, which shall amount to at least 50% of the total estimated expenditure of the protection fund. Monies approved by the President or witness protection program. Monies accruing to the protection fund from any fund or account established by an act for the lodgement of the proceeds of confiscation and forfeited assets. Other sources include a percentage of the total amount recovered by the government as a direct result of information provided by the protected person, subventions, grants, aids, and donations from federal or state governments. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the passage of this bill, as requested by President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, will certainly improve the efficiency of law enforcement agencies and encourage more witnesses and litigants to safely step forward and enable Nigeria meet its international commitments. I therefore urge my colleagues to please support this bill because of its international ramification, and for us to be seen to be serious in fighting this anti-corruption war. Thank you very much.
Distinguished Senator Chukwuka Utazi.
Thank you, Mr. President, and distinguished colleagues. I thank the chairman of Senate Committee Anti-Corruption and Financial Crimes, distinguished Senator Suleiman Gwari, for being timely in responding to Mr. President's letter of 14 January that following the meeting he attended in Egypt, that our partners and world partners in the fight against corruption request that Nigeria comply by getting certain bills named that witness protection, whistleblower, and the process of crime passed so that we can meet with the requirements of United Nations Convention against corruption. Mr. President, this is the way it should be. But I want to say that while I have nothing against this bill in this secondary, I agree that we have to be famously, and expeditiously handled. I want to say that the executive should, because this bill was passed in 8th Assembly, I'm of the opinion that the executive should assent to bills passed by National Assembly. If they have issues, they come for amendment. Because we passed this bill, now that just why it was delayed, just to separate them. The kind of money we are put into the exercise and all the efforts have done amounts to nothing, just because that we want to separate them. That was the only thing that stopped this bill from being signed in 8th Assembly. And having said that much, I want to say that if we pass this one, let us not wait until other people will bring another excuse before we can leave, before that bill is not passed, not assented to, and went for the 10th Assembly. I'm not saying that the National Assembly is bereft of works to be done by successive assemblies, but I should say that anyone will conclude, let the executive back us to get that one done with. If they have issues, they can come back for amendment. It's always accepted, and that is the only way we can get this done here and done with them fastly. Thank you, Mr. President. I support that this second that this will be read and committed to the committee for proper legislative duties. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Distinguished Senator Chukwuka Utazi. Distinguished Senator Smart Adeyemi, Kogi West.
Well, Mr. President, I rise to support this bill. I rise to support this bill because, Mr. President, I think it's a bill that requires the support of all of us towards containing corruption and management of information, towards ensuring that there are disclosures of facts that are required in prosecution. I'm particularly delighted, Mr. President, that there is a provision in Part 6 which criminalizes certain acts relating to false and misleading unlawful disclosures, false representation, and unauthorized access to a witness. More importantly, Mr. President, this will be in conformity with international requirements, and it will further place our country as a country where there's transparency and war against corrupt practices. Well, corruption is a global problem, Mr. President, we must emphasize. It is a global problem because today there's global economic recession. The more reason why quite a number of people can be tempted to go into corruption. But once the laws are put in place, everybody is careful and everybody is afraid of running foul of the law. I hold the view, Mr. President, and I'm delighted to say that this bill is equally interwoven with the Whistleblower Act, bill, which is, I'm told is coming up tomorrow. All these bills are needed and they are good for our country. The more we have the laws in place, which keeps everybody to be on guard, the more reason why it will be difficult for people to easily fall into corrupt practices. I submit, Mr. President, that this bill should be supported because it meets the aspiration of Nigerians, especially the down-to-the people. One, there are enough resources, government will be able to take care of the needs of those who are still below the ladder. And I think more importantly, the fact that it is part of requirement for the war against corruption globally. And in passing this bill, we'll be meeting global standards in the war against corruption. And I commend the ruling party, our party, for continuing the struggle against corruption. It's nothing new, it's a global problem, but the more reason why we must rise to curtailing our nation. I so submit, Mr. President.
Is anybody against the bill? Oh, Senator Plenary, you want to speak?
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I rise to lend my support to this very important bill for two reasons. Number one, Nigeria has acceded to a number of conventions on war against corruption, and we have not domesticated those conventions. And once you accede to a particular convention, you are required to domesticate it by passing a law in the National Assembly that is giving a legal backing to it. And this bill has touched on that. And for that reason, we are complying with the international best practices, as my colleague has said. War against corruption is a global phenomenon, and no country can do it alone. And for that reason, there is need for internationalizing war against corruption. Secondly, Mr. President, Nigeria is considered to have a very weak law on war against corruption. And this law will obviously strengthen our existing laws on corruption. So it will be seen that we are complying with the international best practices, and we are also strengthening war against corruption. Mr. President, I would further say that this bill touches on money laundering, touches on trafficking, narcotics, which is the main problem in Nigeria today. And everybody should support it because narcotics, drugs trafficking, human trafficking are causing very serious problems in Nigeria. If you take, for example, drug trafficking, in our airport, on a daily basis, you see quite a number of people being caught. And these people are just carriers. The main culprits are let loose. They are in the country, nobody cares to go after them. It is only after Brigadier General Buba Marwa retired has been made the chairman of NDLA. We saw very big wigs being caught and put on dock. And quite a number of them are now behind bars. This law will obviously strengthen war against drug trafficking. And innocent youth are being used to carry these drugs. Equally, money laundering is a phenomenon. Money laundering is a phenomenon that is seriously hampering the development of this country. A lot of money is being carted abroad, leaving us in penury situation. This money should have been used to provide services like education, healthcare, agriculture, what have you. But this money is being transferred abroad, and nobody is using it. So this law will strengthen war against money laundering, and it will compel all those that stole money to bring it back to our country for use, to provide services in our country. Mr. President, I commend the mover of this bill, and I urge all my colleagues to support it. It is a piece of legislation that will enhance Nigeria's international stature globally. Thank you very much.
Is anybody against the bill? Distinguished colleagues, almost every administration in this country would work against corruption that has bedeviled the development of this country. The Witness Protection Bill that we are debating today is a way forward to encourage witnesses to testify against corruption, and by protecting them properly, that will incentivize such witnesses. The war against corruption is a must, and it must be won. It's not about the quantum of funds or resources that we have, but how we are able to put to use even our scarce resources. So this is a very, very important bill, and I'm sure that all of us will lend our support. With this, those in favor that this bill be now read the second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the legal and institutional framework to protect witness are related persons with responsibilities for carrying out all administrative duties relating to witnesses in respect to disclosures made for public interest and for other related matters therewith 2022 SB 641 second reading.
A bill for an act to establish the legal and institutional framework to protect witnesses and related persons with responsibilities for carrying out all administrative duties relating to witnesses in respect the disclosures made for public interest and for other related matters there with 2022 second reading taken. And the bill is referred to the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters, and Anti-Corruption and Financial Crimes to report back within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the sixth order of the day is the second reading of the Federal Polytechnic Establishment Act Bill 2021. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read for the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, 14th July 2021. Mr. President, we may wish to invite the distinguished Senator Ramon Mustafa to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time.
Distinguished Senator Olaleko Ramoni Mustafa, Ogun East.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm Olaleko Mustafa, Ogun East. I move that the debate for the establishment of Federal Polytechnic Shagamu be read the second time, Mr. President.
You may proceed, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, permit me to lead the debate on this very important bill for the establishment of the Federal Polytechnic Shagamu, Ogun State. The bill was read for the first time in this hallowed chamber on Wednesday, 14th July 2021. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this bill seeks to establish the Federal Polytechnic Shagamu and make comprehensive provisions for its due management and administration. The establishment of this institution is informed by the imperative to create more access to higher technical education in view of the large number of qualified candidates who are annually stranded in their failed attempts in gaining admission into higher institutions in the states, and to balance the geographical spread of higher institutions as other higher institutions are located in the north and in the west and central districts in the state. Sorry about this mix-up. The objects of the Polytechnic shall be to provide full-time or part-time courses of instruction and training, in technology, applied science, commerce, and management, and in such other fields of applied learning relevant to the needs of the development of Nigeria in the area of industrial and agricultural production and distribution, and for the research in the development and adaptation of techniques as the Council may from time to time determine.
Are you okay?
To arrange conferences, seminars, and study groups the last paragraph. Please turn to page 2. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, our economy has very high potentials and require a high-level technical, scientific, and administrative skill to drive it. The establishment of this polytechnic will go a long way into achieving these targets. The bill is well organized for its very own purpose of the modern academic and research institutions. The objectives of the Polytechnic, as articulated above, are supportive of its mission and broad vision of a modern institution that will develop world-class human resources that can sustainably manage our nation's economy by providing technical and management expertise at the highest level. The Polytechnic is therefore to further advance knowledge through research and nurture unique innovations, entrepreneurship, and wealth management in its core area of interest. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the enactment of this bill will help in transforming the educational fortunes in Nigeria, in producing the desired manpower and expertise that the country is yearning for. The choice for Shagamu as the location of this institution is born out of the fact that it has no federal institution of higher education in the state. Mr. President, may I my highly respected colleagues, in line with Order 77.3 of our standing rules, the financial compendium is hereby attached. I urge all my colleagues to please support this bill for the second reading. Thank you very much.
Distinguished Senator Tolu Odebi.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, let me first of all commend the mover of this motion for this bill for the establishment of a federal polytechnic in Shagamu. Mr. President, for me, naturally, any bill that seeks to further educational learning is a bill that I will always support. And this is particularly even more apt because it's focusing on technology, applied science, commerce, and management. Mr. President, there's no gainsaying that this bill, when passed, will make a great impact in preparing our youths for the digital economy that we are in, and also make them give to be able to have all the necessary requirements to be gainfully employed. I believe this bill, if passed, will enhance the learning and will further improve the quality of life for the citizens of Ogun State, most especially Shagamu, Ogun East, where it's supposed to be located. So, Mr. President, I do wholeheartedly support this bill, and I'll also encourage all my dear distinguished colleagues to please support it. Thank you very much.
Anybody against the bill? Those in favor that this bill will now read the second time, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, a bill for an act to establish the Federal Polytechnic Shagamu to provide full-time courses in technology, applied sciences, management, and other fields of studies, and to make provisions for the general administration and for other related matters 2022, SB 779, second reading.
A bill for an act to establish the Federal Polytechnic Shagamu to provide full-time courses in technology, applied sciences, management, and other fields of studies, and to make provisions for the general administration and for other related matters 2022 second reading taken, and the bill is referred to the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Third Fund to report by within 4 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, having concluded today's proceedings on the order paper, I hereby move that Senate do adjourn till Wednesday, 26 January 2022 at 10 a.m.
Minority Leader.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second that this Senate do now adjourn to 10 a.m. tomorrow prompt.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that the Senate do adjourn till tomorrow, Wednesday, the 26th day of January 2022 at 10 a.m. prompt, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. The Senate is hereby adjourned till tomorrow, Wednesday, the 26th day of January 2022 at 10 a.m. prompt.